Issue 47. This leads to another long, depressing story arc, and oh boy, this is on the level of issue 40 in terms of depressingness. And since I feel like my negative reviews are definitely the most enjoyable, especially since they're very cathartic for me to watch and do, I'm looking forward to this one. Also, I'm really glad I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I started writing it, or I guess I would have procrastinated it again. We start out with Sally looking at a tower through binoculars that have green lenses for some reason, while saying that they're targeting the tower. Seriously though, why are the lenses green? The whole point of binoculars is to let you see things better. So wouldn't it be in your best interest to know what color they are? Maybe they're night vision goggles. But it's a tower. I think it would be visible no matter how dark it was. What's the point? The Wolfpack freedom fighters that I mistrusted on sight are also watching Sonic and Sally through binoculars as they use a grappling hook to get around. And one of them says that if all goes as planned, Robotnik won't know what hit him. That's reassuring, they're against Robotnik. And the bluish-white guy says that he'd only agree if it were the pack handling this, because apparently he's arrogant enough to not have any faith in someone who can move at the speed of sound, and is the most powerful freedom fighter in the world because of it. Why do people keep not having faith in Sonic the Hedgehog? Why is it only his friends who have the brains to respect his abilities? I mean, he can move at the speed of sound. People gotta see how he tears apart Swapboss effortlessly. Lupe annoys me by saying that she and her friends are not free agents, whatever that means. You'd think that freedom fighters would be free agents, and that he'll do well to remember that. Considering he's the same guy they're suspicious of being a traitor, if I were her, I would be more careful about treating him like dirt and getting a potential traitor disgruntled. It'll only further encourage him to ditch people who aren't really his friends anymore. You'd think that, if anything, treating your friend like you don't trust them anymore, treating them like they're already your enemy, will just make them much more likely to want revenge and betray you, even if they weren't planning on doing it before. This seems familiar. Anyways, Lupe tells him to signal the others. We cut to the other members of the Freedom Fighters who happen to have Dr. Quack with them just in case. Odd that this seems to be the only time they take this sort of precaution. I wonder if he'll be used for that. And Antoine gets a message from his communicator that Sonic and Sally have reached their destination, and that the Wolfpack is ready to move in. Antoine tells Draco in irritation that they move in when they get the signal, and not a second sooner. Tensions are really high against this guy. Do they want me to feel sorry for him? That's sending mixed messages, especially since he's very much a villain. Huh, Antoine's friends actually call him out on this, even if it is merely to say that the Wolfpack knows what they're doing. I can't blame Antoine for being edgy though. That one is pretty funny considering what people associate with edgy in the Sonic universe. Edgy and Antoine don't belong in the same sentence together. Although I know that's not what he actually meant by edgy, but he should have said on edge if that's what he was saying. Sally seems dizzy briefly, and it's implied that the recent events with the suspicion campfire and her father supposedly recovering magically made that happen. Just before I could call out the recap on being a waste of time, the king gives us new dialogue. In response to Sally saying no one had told her of his recovery, the king just says, "Everything is on a need-to-know basis, my daughter?" That's totally not suspicious at all, an overly vague answer, and he conspicuously calls her my daughter right after saying my dear Sally. It's like he's trying too hard to be convincing as her father. I have no idea what was really going on at the point that I was writing this review. I was just guessing. The king, still with his suspiciously harsh attitude, although suffering for a while in his own silence would do that to a person, says that there's much to do, so he's already planning something. You'd think that if this was the real king, he would be immediately overjoyed that he's recovered and want to celebrate, not immediately go to planning. And there's very few people he can trust. So he's trying to get Sally to distrust her own friends. So he's paranoid. Well, if he's really Sally's father, then I know where she gets it from, or at the very least, his trip to his own silence from trusting Eggman too much would also be a good explanation of him becoming less trusting. But it could be also another sign that he's not the real king. He tells Sally that Robotnik is set to unleash his most devastating attack yet. How would you know that? You just uncrystallized after spending a long time basically isolated in crystal form. And the minute he insists that Sonic's a traitor with no evidence for it, it even says that it's come to my attention at that, I immediately got my suspicions on full alarm. Either the king seriously lost it, or someone is trying to intentionally sabotage Sonic. Sally was told to accompany Sonic on a mission to see where his true loyalties would lie. At least that's all he said, instead of telling her to imprison him again right away. And she walked away silently while crying, which is a very realistic and sympathetic and relatable reaction to her own father acting that way all of a sudden. I gotta compliment her on two things here. One, that she actually caught that her father was like a stranger to her. And two, that she seems to have finally gotten it in her head that Sonic would never betray her. I say seems because I have absolutely no faith in any of the Freedom Fighters anymore to not assume Sonic would betray them at the drop of a hat after 2 stories, both of which entire arcs, dedicated to their lack of trust in him. Doesn't help that with Rotor accusing Antoine of sending in egg robots against them right after he helped them, Sonic isn't the only one of them who's vulnerable to random suspicion. So I'm willing to bet something's gonna happen soon that will easily convince Sally that Sonic's evil, even though she said she trusts him before. Another problem I have is that Sally's being secretive again. Why the hell didn't she tell her own friends what her father said to her? Not even Sonic? Even though she's supposed to love him? You know, being sneaky isn't exactly a pure heroic trait. You'd think they would call her out on this more, since she's supposed to be the most pure, good, self-righteous freedom fighter of them all. Eggman conveniently spots Sonic and Sally through green binoculars at the exact right time. Something really strange happens as when Sally gets put in grave danger, Sonic seems to cut the rope she's climbing on to make her fall. Right away I guessed that this wasn't the real Sonic, but instead an illusion caused by a mammoth mogul disguised as Sonic. I mean, this Sonic hasn't used any of the powers unique to Sonic at this point, which is pretty suspicious. Still, I'm really not looking forward to seeing the real Sonic have to put up with his friends once again calling him a traitor so easily when just 1 issue ago, his friends had to deal with illusions making them distrust their friends. You'd think by this point they'd be genre savvy enough to not assume Sonic's turned against them so easily, but instead assume that's not the real Sonic. But no, because the writers want drama. After Bunny makes us think she's going to do something useful and catch Sally before disappointing us, and the wolf pack with cool weapons helping instead, Sonic seems to prove that he is the real Sonic by dodging Eggman's attacks. Either that or the real Sonic was far from Sally to the point of being here all along, while the fake Sonic was way closer to Sally for the trick. After Eggman and Snively go down an elevator, and Sonic reflects some lasers with something shiny, Sonic proves that I was onto something by asking, "Where's Sally?" So he had gone on without her uncharacteristically, even though they're on a mission together, and that's why he got framed. That's such great writing. Not arbitrary at all. Sally is revealed to be injured and still unconscious, though they don't have the guts to actually show her with any sort of injuries whatsoever, not even bruises. And the wolf pack, using some cool fire shooters, says that they'll draw attention to themselves so that Bunny can take Sally to the plane. Who would have flown the plane back? He does know that Tails can fly a biplane, right? Tails did it at the start of the Sonic 3 adaptation. Whatever. After Sonic is worried over his friends stitching him with the plane, Eggman says that he's glad his underground transit system had survived the disaster. So I'm expected to believe an earthquake didn't destroy a subway. Yeah, okay. The insulting thing is, they didn't need to have them do this to get away, did they? They could have just had an underground flying machine, although I guess that should have been destroyed too. But it's been such a long time since the big earthquake, the Eggman should have rebuilt everything. So why do you even have to be made to say this in the first place? Why couldn't the elevator that they have gone down through been, like, leading to a tube getting them out of the building entirely? Ugh. Sonic gets arrested again. I'm not looking forward to the next issue. And when they said Sonic was arrested for murdering the princess, I'm immediately assuming that even if they did have the guts to actually have that happen to her, they'll just undo it with time travel or something. So I wasn't really too disturbed by that. Draco comes home and shocks his teammate by bragging that Lupe and the rest of the Freedom Fighters haven't a clue what's in store and laughing evilly. What, so did he team up with Mammoth Mogul for some reason to get disguised as the fake Sonic? I'm fine with characters turning traitor for an interesting plot twist, if only they'd actually bother to explain it.
Sonic is sent to life imprisonment instead of the death penalty because the king favors Sonic. First off, this is yet another reason for me to be suspicious that this isn't the real king, because you can bet the real king would be a lot more vicious towards Sonic if he hurt his own daughter. He's been shown to have a pretty strong attachment to her and care about her a lot. The first thing he did when he saw Sonic in the Zone of Silence with him in his memories was ask if his daughter was okay. More importantly though, I get why he's being imprisoned instead of banished, despite banishment being formally stated to be the only sentencing in Knothole. This is because of the severity of this accused crime. It's bad enough that he gets roboticized and destroys Knothole, but at least then it didn't cause anyone to get hurt. Well, Bunny maybe, but I never saw her needing bandages. I mean, in the issue right after that, she was just fine. My point is they're imprisoning him to make sure he won't try to hurt anyone else. But the same problem with imprisoning him that I mentioned in issue 40 is present here. Put him in prison for long enough, and Eggman would win because they're nothing without him. And Sonic would get freed at best from Knothole being destroyed. But by that time, it'll be too late. His friends would have all been roboticized, and his reputation would have been ruined. And who knows how he would actually handle prison. Someone as claustrophobic as Sonic being imprisoned and not allowed to run free would never be able to handle it. What if he was trapped there long enough to grow resentful of his friends or completely lose it? What if that would be the one bad day Scourge will end up talking about that'll make him evil like him? Granted, they are much more justified in imprisoning Sonic this time, since now they have reason to believe he'd actually hurt people. When earlier they were only punishing him for being disobedient one time, when Sonic's been disobedient plenty of times before that point. Maybe that's why I'm not in any way feeling like Sonic's friends are betraying him and being terrible friends. They're not being terrible friends here. They're acting realistically. It helps that it's Jeffrey who arrests him this time. Jeffrey isn't supposed to be his friend. He's already been established to not like him. Eggman, who thought to watch the sentencing from a monitor, laughs that Sonic is taking the fall, proving that I was right to be suspicious of him the whole issue for his unusually smug behavior that entire issue. But now I have two questions. One, I didn't know Eggman could make illusions like Mammoth Mogul could. Did he enlist his help? Or maybe he just used an exact duplicate robot of Sonic, finally actually making use of his look-alike robots. You'd think it'd be obvious to the freedom fighters that this would be a possibility. And two, he has a camera in Knothole. He has an invisible flying camera recording the jury sentencing. And he still doesn't know where Knothole is. You'd think he'd put coordinates locators on those flying drone cameras. Although that would just bring up the question of why he hasn't found Knothole a very long time ago by just sending those cameras throughout all the Great Forest. There's no backup story, by the way, which means there's nothing lighthearted to make up for this overly depressing ending. But yeah, this is yet another overly depressing story that's giving me the same general feelings as issue 39. And when the wound is still fresh, too! Remember, Bunny saying she'd kill Sonic without hesitation in issue 40 single-handedly made me go from liking her a little bit, but mostly just loving her concept, and completely apathetic to her and not caring if she's out of focus, and only liking her concept. Because it's bad enough she's got barely any personality, just being a bland nice girl, but now with her lack of hesitation of trying to kill Sonic, she doesn't even have my faith in that. Because what nice girl would be that heartless? I don't hate Bunny exactly, as a person, but she's done nothing to make up for it since then. And the fact that I'm still bitter from this, and it's barely a dozen issues from that point, is proof that it's too early to do this kind of story again. I don't think a story about Sonic reframed and arrested needs to happen more than once. Is that the only thing for a high-stakes drama that they can think of? And the thing is, Ken Penders wrote the story this time, so it's as if he's trying to outdo Mike Gallagher and prove that he can make a better Sonic is Arrested story. And, well, I guess that's true. His friends are more justified in how they're reacting this time, literally seeing what they think is Sonic injuring their friend, whereas in issue 39 they never saw Sonic try to get himself roboticized on purpose, and so they shouldn't have assumed he'd do that so easily. And we're only throwing a tantrum about Sonic disobeying Sally, instead of feeling sorry for him for being roboticized. And Antoine and Bunny were outright vicious towards him in jury, being completely unsympathetic as a result. While here, none of Sonic's friends act like a jerk to him. But still, they know exact robot duplicates of people can be made by Eggman, and just one issue ago they were dealing with illusions of their friends tricking them. So you'd think his friends would prefer to jump to those conclusions, because it'd be easier on them to believe that than believe that Sonic had turned traitor for no reason. You'd think it'd make more sense for his friends to go into denial than to assume the worst of Sonic. That's what the whole denial psychological state is for, after all. But unlike with Fang showing up and dropping a dumbbell on Sonic out of nowhere, I can't say that Sonic being framed is a diabolic ex machina, because it makes perfect sense that would happen. It makes perfect sense that a fake Sonic would be used to frame Sonic, especially after a similar thing happened just an issue ago. So basically, Pender's did this kind of story better in every possible way. Makes sense since he is more used to writing serious stories. So he did the story better, except for the tiny detail that the mere premise of him getting in such trouble is too depressing, an inherent problem that could only be avoided by not writing this kind of story at all. He learned every single lesson except the lesson that he should have, that he shouldn't have really even tried. Especially since this whole story arc is going to lead to a bunch of other more interesting stories that don't really need to have Sonic be on the run during it. Well, I haven't finished that story arc at the time of this recording. Maybe they do, but yeah, I don't really like this.